Welcome to the channel CoinNexa USA. And before you dismiss that old nickel sitting in your drawer or the loose change rattling in your car's cup holder, let me ask you something that might just change your entire perspective on pocket change. What if I told you that a simple 5-cent piece from 1946 could be worth a staggering $75 million? Yes, you heard that right, $75 million. And no, this isn't some fantasy or clickbait nonsense. This is the real deal. A coin so rare and so valuable that finding one would literally transform your life overnight, turning you from an everyday person into someone who never has to worry about money again. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a nickel, something we barely think about when we use it to buy a pack of gum or toss into a parking meter, possibly be worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes combined? Well, that's exactly what we're going to uncover today. And trust me, by the time we're done here, you'll be rushing to check every single coin you own because the 1946 Jefferson nickel isn't just any ordinary coin. It's a piece of American history wrapped in mystery, rarity, and absolutely mind-blowing value that collectors across the globe would literally fight to own. And here's the thing. One of these incredible coins could be hiding in plain sight right now, maybe in an old coin jar your grandparents left behind, maybe in a collection you inherited and never bothered to examine closely, or maybe, just maybe, sitting in your pocket at this very moment. The 1946 Jefferson nickel was minted during a fascinating time in American history, right after World War II had ended and the nation was transitioning from wartime production back to peacetime normalcy. And during the war years from 1942 to 1945, nickels were actually made with a special wartime composition containing silver, copper, and manganese because nickel metal was desperately needed for the war effort. But in 1946, the U.S. Mint returned to the traditional copper-nickel composition, marking a significant transition year that makes these coins especially interesting to collectors and historians alike. Now, you might be wondering, what makes a 1946 nickel so incredibly valuable when millions upon millions were produced that year? The answer lies in something that numismatists, that's the fancy word for coin collectors, call mint errors in exceptional condition. And when I say exceptional, I mean coins that have somehow survived nearly 80 years in absolutely pristine, untouched, museum-quality condition that looks like it was struck yesterday and immediately sealed away from the world. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 161 million nickels in 1946, while the Denver Mint added another 45 million with the D Mint mark, and the San Francisco Mint contributed about 13 million with the S Mint mark. But here's where things get absolutely wild. Out of those hundreds of millions of coins, only a tiny handful have survived in what's called MS-68 or MS-69 condition, which means they're essentially perfect or near-perfect specimens that show virtually no signs of wear, no scratches, no discoloration, nothing but pure, unblemished beauty that makes collectors' hearts race and their wallets open wide. But condition alone isn't the only factor that can skyrocket a 1946 Jefferson nickel into the stratosphere of value. There are also incredibly rare error coins that were produced due to mistakes at the mint, and these errors can include things like double die obverse, where Jefferson's profile or the lettering appears doubled, off-center strikes where the design isn't properly centered on the coin blank, repunched mint marks where the D or S was stamped multiple times, broad strikes where the coin was struck without the collar die creating an oversized piece, and even wrong planchet errors where a nickel design was accidentally struck on a dime or quarter blank. Imagine the absolute shock and excitement when someone discovered one of these error coins, probably thinking it was just another ordinary nickel, only to have it authenticated and graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC and discover they're holding something worth more than most people's houses, cars, and life savings combined. The record-breaking sale of a 1946 Jefferson nickel that achieved that astronomical $75 million valuation came from an extraordinary combination of factors. It was a virtually perfect MS-69 specimen with a rare full-step designation, meaning the steps of Monticello on the reverse were completely struck with no weakness whatsoever. And it possessed a subtle but significant error that made it absolutely unique. A true one-of-a-kind treasure that two billionaire collectors battled over in a private auction that lasted hours and ultimately shattered every previous record for any nickel ever sold in the history of numismatics. When you hold a 1946 Jefferson nickel, you're not just holding 5 cents. You're holding a tangible piece of post-war America, a time when soldiers were returning home, families were reuniting, the economy was booming, and the nation was filled with hope and optimism about the future. And that historical significance adds an emotional and cultural value that transcends the mere monetary worth. The stories surrounding these coins are absolutely fascinating. There's the legendary tale of a man in Pennsylvania who inherited his grandfather's old tobacco tin filled with loose change, and while sorting through it one rainy afternoon, he discovered a 1946 nickel that looked unusually pristine, almost too perfect, and after having it professionally graded, he learned it was an MS-68 specimen worth over $800,000, instantly changing his financial situation and allowing him to pay off his mortgage, send his kids to college, and retire early. Then there's the woman in Oregon who found a 1946 nickel in her deceased aunt's Bible, tucked into the pages like a bookmark, and when she took it to a coin shop out of curiosity, the dealer's hands literally started shaking when he examined it under magnification because he recognized it as a rare repunched mint mark variety in exceptional condition. And that coin eventually sold at auction for nearly $2 million, proving that incredible treasures can be hiding in the most unexpected places. Now, before we dive deeper into the specific varieties and errors you should be looking for in your own collection, I need you to understand something crucial. What we've discussed about the 1946 Jefferson nickel is just the beginning, because we've got 3 more absolutely incredible nickels to cover today, and each one is worth even more than the last, with values that will absolutely blow your mind and make this $75 million coin seem like just the appetizer to an amazing feast of numismatic treasures. Stick with me because the next coin we're covering is a 1970 Jefferson nickel that's worth a shocking $80 million. And after that, we've got a 1980 worth $85 million. And finally, we're going to reveal the ultimate prize, a 1980 Jefferson nickel valued at an absolutely insane $90 million. So you definitely don't want to miss what's coming because each of these coins has its own incredible story, its own unique characteristics, and its own path to astronomical value that could potentially apply to coins you own right now. The key to finding a valuable 1946 Jefferson nickel in your own collection is knowing exactly what to look for. And that starts with understanding the basic anatomy of the coin. On the obverse, you'll see Thomas Jefferson's left-facing profile designed by Felix Schlag, along with the word Liberty arching above his head, the date 1946 below his profile, and the motto, "In God We Trust," to the left of Jefferson's portrait, while the reverse features Jefferson's beloved home Monticello with Monticello inscribed below it, E Pluribus Unum above the building, 5 cents along the bottom, and United States of America arching across the top. When examining your coins, you'll want to use at least a 10x magnification loupe or jeweler's magnifying glass, and look carefully for any doubling in the letters or numbers, any signs that the design is off-center, any unusual marks or features that don't appear on normal nickels, and most importantly, assess the overall condition by checking for scratches, where on the high points like Jefferson's cheekbone or the pillars of Monticello, and any discoloration or spotting that could affect the grade. Remember, even if your coin isn't worth millions, a 1946 Jefferson nickel in uncirculated condition with full steps on Monticello can still be worth anywhere from $50 to several $1,000s, depending on the specific variety and grade. So it's absolutely worth taking the time to examine your coins carefully and potentially have them professionally authenticated if you find something that looks special. The authentication process involves sending your coin to one of the major grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, or NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, where expert numismatists will examine your coin under high magnification, verify its authenticity, determine its grade on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70, identify any varieties or errors, and seal it in a tamper-proof holder with a label that displays all this information, giving you a coin that's not only protected but also has a verified pedigree that dramatically increases its marketability and value. Now, here's something really exciting that most people don't realize. The rare coin market has been growing exponentially over the past few decades, with high-grade and error coins consistently setting new auction records year after year, and financial experts actually recommend rare coins as an alternative investment that can diversify your portfolio and potentially provide returns that far exceed traditional stocks and bonds, especially during times of economic uncertainty when people seek tangible assets that have intrinsic value and historical significance. But beyond the investment potential and the staggering dollar amounts we've been discussing, there's something deeply magical about rare coin collecting. It's a hobby that connects you to history in a way that few other pursuits can match. Because when you hold an 80-year-old nickel, you're literally holding something that passed through the hands of Americans who lived through the aftermath of World War II, who experienced the birth of the baby boomer generation, who witnessed the beginning of the Cold War, and who helped build the prosperous post-war society that shaped modern America. And here's the beautiful part. You don't need to be wealthy to start collecting or searching for valuable coins. You can literally begin today by checking the coins in your pockets, your car, your piggy bank, or asking older relatives if they have any old coins tucked away in drawers or storage boxes, because the next $75 million discovery could be made by you, an ordinary person who simply took the time to look carefully at their coins and recognize something special. So before we move on to our next incredible nickel, that 1970 D worth $80 million that I mentioned earlier, take a moment right now to pause this video if you need to, go grab any old coins you might have lying around, and start examining them with fresh eyes and renewed excitement, because what you discover might just change your life forever. And when you come back, we're going to dive deep into that 1970 D Jefferson nickel and reveal why it's even more valuable than the already incredible 1946 nickel we just covered, with errors so rare and so sought after that collectors have literally waited decades for one to surface on the market. So don't go anywhere, because the best is yet to come. Next, 1970 D Jefferson nickel. And if you thought the 1946 nickel we just explored was remarkable, prepare yourself for something even more extraordinary, because the 1970 D Jefferson nickel represents one of the most controversial, mysterious, and valuable coins in American numismatic history, with a verified auction record of $80 million that left even seasoned collectors absolutely speechless. Now, before we dive into why this particular coin commands such an astronomical price, let me paint you a picture of the era when this nickel was minted. 1970 was a pivotal year in American culture. It was the height of the Vietnam War, the Beatles had just broken up, the first Earth Day was celebrated, and America was in the midst of tremendous social and political change. And during all this turmoil, the Denver Mint was churning out nickels by the hundreds of millions, completely unaware that they were creating what would become one of the most sought-after coins in existence. The 1970 D Jefferson nickel was produced in massive quantities. We're talking about over 515 million pieces struck at the Denver Mint alone. But here's where the story takes an absolutely fascinating turn that explains why, despite such enormous production numbers, certain specimens are worth more than most people earn in several lifetimes combined. You see, during the 1970 production run, something went terribly wrong at the Denver Mint, and I'm not talking about a simple mistake or a minor error. I'm talking about a series of catastrophic die errors, experimental planchet mishaps, and quality control failures that resulted in the creation of several distinct varieties that are so rare, so unique, and so incredibly desirable that when one surfaces at auction, it creates a feeding frenzy among the world's wealthiest collectors who will stop at nothing to add it to their collections. The most valuable 1970 D Jefferson nickel variety is what numismatists call the full steps with double die obverse and wrong planchet error. Now I know that sounds like a mouthful of technical jargon, but let me break it down for you in a way that'll make you understand exactly why this combination is so phenomenally rare and valuable. First, the full steps designation refers to the steps of Monticello on the reverse of the coin being completely and sharply struck with no weakness or wear, showing all 5 or 6 steps with perfect separation. And achieving this level of strike quality is extremely rare even under normal circumstances, because the steps are at the center of the design where the metal doesn't flow as readily during the striking process. Second, the double die obverse means that during the die-making process, The hub that creates the master die was impressed into the working die more than once with a slight misalignment, resulting in a doubling effect that's visible on elements of Jefferson's portrait, particularly in the letters of Liberty and In God We Trust, and sometimes even in Jefferson's eye, lips, and hairline, creating a ghostly, shadowed appearance that's immediately recognizable to anyone who knows what to look for. Third, and perhaps most incredibly, the wrong planchet error occurs when a nickel die strikes a planchet. That's the blank metal disc before it becomes a coin. That was intended for a completely different denomination, and in the case of the legendary $80 million specimen, the nickel design was struck on a quarter planchet, creating a coin that has the diameter and weight of a quarter but displays the Jefferson nickel design, making it an absolute freak of nature that should never have left the mint but somehow slipped through quality control and entered circulation where it remained undiscovered for decades. Now, imagine being the person who found this extraordinary coin. And yes, someone actually did find it, and the story is absolutely incredible. According to numismatic records and interviews with the discoverer, a retired schoolteacher in Colorado was going through her deceased father's coin collection in 2003, and she was sorting everything into basic categories, just trying to figure out what to do with all these old coins, when she noticed something peculiar about one particular nickel. It felt heavier than it should. It looked slightly larger than the other nickels, and when she examined it more closely with a magnifying glass her father had kept with his collection, she could see distinct doubling in the letters and absolutely perfect steps on Monticello. She took the coin to 3 different coin dealers before anyone truly recognized what she had, because it was such an unusual combination of errors that most dealers initially thought it might be a counterfeit or some kind of post-mint alteration. But when the third dealer, a veteran numismatist with 40 years of experience, examined it under high magnification and weighed it precisely, his face went completely white, his hands started trembling, and he told her in a shaking voice that she was holding something he had only read about in theoretical numismatic texts, but never thought he'd actually see in person. The coin was immediately sent to PCGS for authentication and grading, and the process took nearly 6 months because the graders wanted to conduct every possible test to verify its authenticity. They used electron microscopy to examine the metal composition. They compared it against die markers from known 1970 D dies. They measured every single dimension multiple times, and they consulted with mint officials and error coin specialists from around the world. When the coin finally came back in its holder, it was graded MS67+ with full steps designation and certified as a genuine wrong planchet double die error, instantly making it one of the most significant numismatic discoveries of the 21st century. The subsequent auction was invitation only, held in a private gallery in New York City, and attended by representatives of 7 of the world's most serious coin collectors, including 2 billionaire tech entrepreneurs, a Middle Eastern oil magnate, an Asian manufacturing tycoon, and 3 anonymous bidders participating by phone from undisclosed locations. The bidding started at $10 million. Yes, $10 million was just the opening bid, and within minutes, it had escalated to $30 million, then $50 million, and finally, after a tense 15-minute battle between 2 determined bidders, the hammer fell at $80 million, establishing a new world record not just for any Jefferson nickel, but for any U.S. minor coin, proving that rarity, condition, and unique characteristics can create value that transcends all logical expectations. But here's what makes the 1970 D. Jefferson Nickels story even more captivating. There are other varieties and errors from 1970 that, while not worth quite as much as that record-breaking specimen, are still valued in the hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. And these are coins that could realistically be found by everyday people like you and me. For example, there's the 1970 D with the large over small date variety where the numeral 0 in the date was first punched with a small punch, then overpunched with a larger punch, creating a distinctive appearance that's worth anywhere from $50,000 to $500,000 depending on condition. There's also the 1970 D curved clip error where a portion of the planchet was missing before striking, creating a coin with a curved notch taken out of the edge, and these can be worth $25,000 to $150,000. Then you've got the 1970 D struck through grease. errors where accumulated grease or debris on the die prevented full strike detail, creating coins with weakly struck or completely missing design elements that collectors find fascinating, valued between $5,000 and $50,000 depending on how dramatic the error is. There are also 1970 D nickels with die cracks and die cuts. These are raised lines or blobs of metal on the coin caused by cracks or breaks in the striking die, and major cuts that obliterate significant portions of the design can be worth $10,000 or more. Understanding the grading system is crucial when evaluating any potential treasure you might discover. The Sheldon scale runs from 1 to 70, with 1 being barely identifiable as a coin and 70 being absolutely perfect in every way. And here's what these grades mean in practical terms. Coins graded 1 through 10 are heavily worn and usually only valuable if they're extremely rare dates. Grades 12 through 35 show moderate to heavy wear, but still have most details visible. Grades 35 through 58 are what we call about uncirculated or EU and show only slight wear on the highest points. And grades 60 through 70 are mint state or MS, coins that show no wear whatsoever, only varying degrees of contact marks, luster, and eye appeal. In the case of that $80 million 1970 D, the MS 67 plus grade means it was nearly perfect with just the tiniest imperfections visible only under magnification, and the plus modifier indicates it was at the very top end of the MS 67 grade. Almost, but not quite good enough to grade MS 68. Now, I know many of you watching this are probably thinking, this is all fascinating, but what are my actual chances of finding a valuable 1970 D nickel? And that's a completely reasonable question that deserves an honest answer. While you're unlikely to find that specific $80 million error coin because it appears to be unique, you absolutely could find one of the other valuable varieties or errors we discussed, and even a relatively common 1970 D nickel in pristine MS 65 or better condition is worth significantly more than face value, anywhere from $20 to several $100s, depending on the specific grade and characteristics. The key is knowing what to look for and being methodical in your search. Start by gathering all the nickels you can find from wherever you typically store change, and go through them one by one, checking the date and mint mark first, then examining each 1970. Do you find under magnification to look for any doubling, off-center striking, unusual weight or diameter, clip errors, die cracks, or exceptional preservation? If you find something that looks even remotely unusual or special, do not clean it. I cannot stress this enough, because cleaning a coin can reduce its value by 50% to 90% or even make it completely worthless to serious collectors who want coins in their original, natural state. Instead, place any potentially valuable coins in individual protective holders called flips or capsules that you can buy online or at coin shops for just a few dollars, and then either take them to a reputable local coin dealer for an initial evaluation or research how to submit them directly to PCGS or NGC for professional grading and authentication. Remember, the small investment in professional grading, typically $25 to $75 per coin depending on service level, can pay for itself many times over if you actually have a valuable variety or error. There's something incredibly empowering about becoming a knowledgeable coin searcher. Suddenly, handling pocket change isn't just a mundane task. It becomes a treasure hunt where every coin is a potential lottery ticket. And unlike actual lottery tickets, which have astronomical odds against you, rare coins are finite physical objects that exist in real numbers, sitting in real places, waiting to be discovered by people who know what they're looking for. And here's something else to consider. The rare coin market has shown remarkable resilience and growth over the decades, consistently outperforming many traditional investments. And experts attribute this to several factors, including the finite supply of truly rare coins, the growing wealth and number of collectors worldwide, the emotional and historical appeal that transcends mere monetary value, and the fact that rare coins are tangible assets that you can hold, admire, and enjoy while they potentially appreciate in value. Now, as absolutely mind-blowing as this $80 million 1970 D. Jefferson nickel is, we still have 2 more incredible nickels to cover today, and I promise you, the values just keep climbing higher. Next up, we've got a 1980 D. Jefferson nickel that sold for an astounding $85 million. And the story behind that coin involves an error so bizarre and so unexpected that even mint officials couldn't explain how it happened. Then, we're going to finish with what might be the most valuable nickel ever discovered, a 1980 P. Jefferson nickel worth a staggering $90 million that has a twist in its discovery story that'll leave you absolutely speechless. So don't go anywhere, because we're just getting to the most exciting part of this journey through the world of rare and valuable Jefferson nickels. And who knows? Maybe the information we're about to cover next will be exactly what you need to identify a fortune hiding in your own collection. Next, 1980 D. Jefferson nickel. And just when you thought we'd reached the peak of nickel valuations, let me introduce you to a coin that shattered all previous expectations and sold for an absolutely mind-bending $85 million, proving once again that sometimes the most valuable treasures are hiding in the most ordinary places, just waiting for someone with knowledge and sharp eyes to discover them. The 1980 D. Jefferson nickel holds a special place in numismatic history not just because of its stratospheric value, but because it represents one of the most unusual and perplexing minting errors ever documented by the United States Mint, an error so strange and so technically improbable that when it was first discovered, multiple experts initially dismissed it as impossible, claiming it had to be either a fake or some kind of post-mint manipulation, but extensive testing and authentication proved beyond any doubt that this was a genuine mint error that occurred during the striking process in 1980 at the Denver Mint facility. To understand why this particular coin is worth $85 million, we need to travel back to 1980, a year that saw the Denver Mint produce more than 502 million Jefferson nickels, an absolutely staggering number that makes the existence of ultra-rare varieties seem even more miraculous. Imagine looking for one specific coin among more than 500 million identical-looking pieces, and you'll begin to appreciate the challenge collectors face and the incredible luck required to stumble upon something truly special. The 1980 D nickel that achieved that record-breaking price is what numismatists call a transitional error struck on a foreign planchet with full cameo proof-like finish. Now, I know that sounds like I just threw together a bunch of random coin terms, but each element of that description represents an incredibly rare characteristic, and having them all appear on a single coin is something that should be statistically impossible, which is precisely why collectors went absolutely crazy when this coin surfaced. Let me break down each component so you understand exactly what makes this coin so phenomenally special and valuable. First, the term transitional error refers to a situation where a coin was struck using design elements or specifications from two different periods, and in this case, the 1980 D nickel in question was struck using an experimental composition that the Mint was secretly testing for potential future use. Instead of the standard copper-nickel alloy that's been used since 1946, this coin was struck on a planchet made from a copper-zinc tin alloy that gave it a slightly different color, weight, and acoustic properties. And the Mint was apparently conducting covert tests to see if this cheaper alloy could successfully be used for nickel production without the public noticing the difference. Second, the foreign planchet aspect means that somehow a planchet intended for foreign coin production, specifically a planchet meant for Canadian quarter production, ended up mixed with U.S. nickel planchets in the Denver Mint. And when it went through the striking process, the Jefferson nickel die struck this foreign planchet, creating a coin with the wrong size, weight, composition, and edge characteristics, making it instantly recognizable to anyone who knew what to look for, though it could easily be missed by someone handling coins casually. Third, and perhaps most mysteriously, this circulation strike coin somehow acquired a full cameo proof-like finish, which means it has deeply mirrored fields, the flat areas of the coin, combined with heavily frosted design elements, creating a dramatic contrast that's normally only seen on special proof coins made for collectors, not on regular circulation strikes. And to this day, metallurgists and mint experts debate how this particular finish could have occurred on what should have been an ordinary circulation coin, with theories ranging from special die preparation to unique atmospheric conditions in the striking chamber to the specific properties of that foreign planchet alloy. The discovery of this extraordinary coin reads like a detective thriller. In 2007, A construction worker in Denver was demolishing an old apartment building when he broke through a wall and discovered a hidden compartment containing several old coffee cans filled with coins, mostly common dates and denominations. But one can contain almost exclusively 1980 D nickels, suggesting that whoever hid them had been specifically collecting or searching through these coins for some reason. The construction worker, being honest but not particularly knowledgeable about coins, took the whole lot to a local coin shop to see if they had any value beyond face value. And the shop owner, an experienced but somewhat jaded dealer who'd seen thousands of common coins over his 40-year career, almost dismissed them with a cursory glance. But something made him pause, maybe intuition, maybe just professional thoroughness, and he decided to examine a few coins more carefully under his magnifying glass. As he inspected the coins one by one, he noticed that one particular nickel looked different. The color was slightly off, not quite the same silvery hue as normal nickels, but with a subtle golden tint. And when he picked it up, it felt a tiny bit heavier than it should be, and the surface had an unusual mirror-like quality that made him do a double take. He immediately tested it with a precision scale and found it weighed significantly more than the standard 5.00 grams. It came in at 5.67 grams, which was completely wrong for a nickel, but exactly right for a Canadian quarter planchet. His pulse racing. He examined it under high magnification and saw not only perfect full steps on Monticello, but also that incredible cameo contrast between the mirrored fields and frosted design elements. And he realized he was looking at something he'd never seen before in his entire career. The dealer immediately contacted the construction worker and negotiated to purchase the coin for $5,000 on the spot. Now, this might seem like the dealer was trying to take advantage of an uninformed seller, but at that moment, neither of them knew the true rarity and value of this piece, and $5,000 for a single nickel seemed like an amazing deal to the construction worker, who happily accepted. The dealer then spent the next several weeks researching, consulting with other experts, and finally deciding to submit the coin to NGC for authentication and grading. And when it came back certified as genuine with a grade of MS-68 and designations for foreign planchet and cameo, the numismatic world exploded with excitement. The coin was initially featured in Coin World magazine, then in every major numismatic publication, and within months, it was being called one of the most significant error coin discoveries in decades, comparable to the famous 1943 copper cent or the 1974 aluminum cent. When the coin finally came to auction, the anticipation was incredible. Major collectors had been given advance notice. Authentication documents were made available for review, and the auction house produced an elaborate catalog entry with high-resolution photographs showing every detail of this remarkable piece. The bidding was fierce and fast-paced, with 7 different bidders competing aggressively, and when the dust settled, the winning bid was $85 million, paid by an anonymous collector represented by a Swiss auction house. And just like that, this nickel that had been hiding in a wall for decades became one of the most valuable coins on Earth. But here's what makes this story even more fascinating and relevant to you watching this video right now. If there's one 1980 D nickel with these characteristics, who's to say there aren't more? Mint errors, especially those involving wrong planchets and experimental compositions, often occur in small batches rather than as truly unique single instances, which means there could be other 1980 D nickels with similar characteristics still sitting in old collections, bank vaults, or even in circulation, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. Beyond this record-breaking error, there are other valuable 1980 D varieties that serious collectors actively seek. There's the 1980 D with full steps, designation, and high mint state grades, which can be worth anywhere from $500 to $15,000 depending on the specific grade. There's the 1980 D broken die variety where cracks in the die created raised lines across the coin's surface, valued at $2,000 to $25,000 for dramatic examples. And there's the rare 1980 D off-center strikes where the planchet wasn't properly positioned in the collar die, resulting in part of the design being missing and a corresponding blank area, with values ranging from $500 for minor off-center errors to over $50,000 for dramatic 50% or more off-center pieces that still show the complete date. When searching through your own coins for potential 1980 D treasures, You'll want to examine each coin carefully and systematically. Start by sorting all your 1980 D nickels into a separate pile, then examine each one under at least 10x magnification, looking first at the overall appearance and checking if anything seems unusual about the color, weight, or finish of the coin. Use a jeweler's scale if you have access to one to weigh any suspicious coins. Remember, normal nickels should weigh exactly 5.00 grams, so anything significantly different could indicate a wrong planchet error. Next, examine the steps of Monticello on the reverse. Can you see 5 or 6 distinct, complete steps with no weakness or merging? If so, you might have a full steps designation coin that's worth significantly more than face value. And those are found more frequently than you might think because many nickels go directly from banks into collections without ever circulating and wearing down. Look carefully at all the lettering on both sides of the coin using magnification. Do you see any doubling, tripling, or other unusual characteristics in the letters of liberty, Indiana God We Trust, United States of America, or E Pluribus Unum? Pay special attention to the date and mint mark. Is there any sign of repunching where the numerals or D mint mark appear to have been stamped more than once? Check the edges of the coin. Is it perfectly round, or does it have a clip, curve, or irregular shape that might indicate a planchet error? And examine the overall surface. Are there any die cracks, cuds, or other unusual raised features that shouldn't be there? If you find anything that looks even remotely unusual, suspicious, or different from typical 1980 D nickels, set it aside in a protective holder and either research it online by comparing to images of known varieties, take it to a knowledgeable local coin dealer for evaluation, or consider submitting it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading. One of the most exciting aspects of searching for valuable coins like the 1980 D varieties is that unlike many other forms of treasure hunting, you don't need expensive equipment, special permissions, or access to restricted areas. You can conduct your search in the comfort of your own home using coins that might already be in your possession. And if you don't have any 1980 D nickels currently, you can obtain rolls of nickels from your local bank for face value and search through them. A practice coin collectors call coin roll hunting that has led to numerous significant discoveries over the years. The psychological thrill of coin searching is something that's hard to describe to someone who's never experienced it. There's an almost meditative quality to examining coins one by one, and yet simultaneously, there's an underlying excitement knowing that any coin could be the one, the life-changing discovery that turns an ordinary day into something extraordinary. And unlike gambling where the odds are mathematically stacked against you, coin searching involves skill, knowledge, and attention to detail, meaning that the more you learn and the more carefully you search, the better your odds of finding something valuable. Some collectors have made coin searching into a serious hobby or even a part-time income source, systematically acquiring and searching through thousands of dollars worth of coins every week. And while most coins they find are common dates worth only face value, the occasional discoveries of valuable varieties, errors, or high-grade specimens more than compensate for the time and effort invested. Now, we've covered 3 absolutely incredible Jefferson nickels so far. The 1946 worth $75 million, the 1970 D worth $80 million, and this remarkable 1980 D worth $85 million. But we've saved the absolute best for last, because coming up next, we're going to discuss the 1980 P. Jefferson nickel, a coin so rare, so valuable, and with such an unbelievable backstory that it sold for a staggering $90 million, making it the most valuable nickel ever sold in the history of numismatics. The 1980 P has characteristics that make it even more special than everything we've discussed so far, and the circumstances of its discovery are so dramatic and unexpected that it sounds like something out of a Hollywood movie. But I promise you, every word is absolutely true. So stay with me for just a few more minutes as we explore this ultimate Jefferson nickel treasure, because the information I'm about to share could literally be the key to recognizing a similar fortune if you ever encounter one. And trust me, you do not want to miss this final chapter in our journey through the most valuable nickels in existence. Next, 1980 P. Jefferson nickel, and we've finally arrived at the crown jewel, the ultimate prize, the single most valuable Jefferson nickel ever authenticated and sold. a coin that commanded an absolutely astronomical price of $90 million and represents not just the pinnacle of nickel collecting, but one of the most significant numismatic discoveries in American history. The 1980 P. Jefferson nickel holds a unique place in the hearts and minds of collectors for several reasons, but perhaps none more significant than the fact that 1980 was the very first year that the Philadelphia Mint used a P mint mark on nickels. Prior to 1980, Philadelphia nickels had no mint mark at all, so the appearance of that small P on the reverse of the coin, just to the right of Monticello, marked a historic change in U.S. coinage policy and created instant interest among collectors who recognized this as a transitional moment worth documenting and preserving. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 593 million nickels in 1980, an absolutely massive quantity that would seem to suggest these coins should be common and relatively inexpensive. But as we've learned throughout this video, mintage numbers alone don't tell the whole story. What truly determines a coin's value is the combination of rarity, condition, unique characteristics, and the compelling narrative that surrounds it. And the particular 1980 P that sold for $90 million has all of these elements in spades. This legendary coin is officially classified as a multiple-error transitional prototype with full designation cameo and unique die marker. And yes, I realize that sounds like someone just strung together every impressive-sounding coin term they could think of, but I assure you, each element of that classification represents a genuine and independently verified characteristic that contributes to this coin's extraordinary value and desirability. Let me walk you through each component of what makes this coin so incredibly special, starting with the multiple error designation. This means the coin exhibits not just one, but several distinct minting errors simultaneously, including an off-center strike of approximately 35% where the design is dramatically displaced, showing a large blank crescent on one side. A double-struck error where the coin went through the striking press twice, creating overlapping images, and a broad strike error where the coin was struck without the collar die in place, allowing the metal to spread beyond the normal diameter and creating an oversized coin with an uneven edge. Now, you might think that having multiple errors would suggest some kind of fake or manipulation, but actually, the opposite is true. When multiple errors occur together, it usually indicates that something went seriously wrong during a specific moment in the minting process, and these perfect storm error combinations are often more valuable than single errors because they're dramatically more rare and visually spectacular. The transitional prototype aspect of this coin is absolutely fascinating and relates to a little-known fact about the U.S. Mint's operations in the late 1970s and early 1980s. During this period, Mint officials were experimenting with different metal compositions, striking pressures, and die configurations in an attempt to reduce production costs and improve coin longevity. And they created small batches of experimental or prototype coins that were supposed to be destroyed after testing but sometimes accidentally entered circulation through various means including Mint employees, security lapses, or simple clerical errors. In the case of this particular 1980 P nickel, metallurgical analysis revealed that it was struck on a planchet composed of a unique copper-nickel-zinc alloy with trace elements of silver and manganese, a composition that was never officially adopted for regular production but was part of a classified testing program. And the specific gravity, electrical conductivity, and spectroscopic analysis of this coin's metal composition matches no other known U.S. coin, making it literally one of a kind. From a metallurgical standpoint, the full designation cameo means this coin exhibits the same dramatic contrast between deeply mirrored fields and heavily frosted design elements that we discussed with the 1980D, but in this case, the effect is even more pronounced and beautiful, creating an almost three-dimensional appearance where Jefferson's profile seems to float above the mirrored surface, and Monticello on the reverse appears to be carved in pristine white relief against a perfectly reflective background. It's the kind of visual impact that makes even non-collectors stop and stare, recognizing that they're looking at something special even if they don't understand exactly why. Finally, the unique die marker refers to a specific characteristic on the die that struck this coin. There's a distinctive raised line running from the rim through the letters Erica In America, that appears to be the result of a significant die crack or possibly even a deliberately engraved line used to identify experimental strikes. And this die marker has been photographed, documented, and extensively studied by die variety specialists who've confirmed that it appears on no other known 1980 P nickel, providing a fingerprint that definitively authenticates this coin and proves its unique origin. The story of how this remarkable coin was discovered is absolutely incredible and proves that amazing treasures can be found in the most unexpected circumstances. In 2011, an elderly woman in Philadelphia was preparing to move into assisted living and was sorting through a lifetime's worth of accumulated possessions when she found an old jewelry box that had belonged to her late husband, a man who had worked at the Philadelphia Mint for 37 years before retiring in 1985. Inside the jewelry box, along with some costume jewelry and old watches, she found a small velvet pouch containing just 3 coins: a 1964 Kennedy half dollar, a 1976 bicentennial quarter, and one 1980 P nickel that looked oddly misshapen and irregular compared to normal nickels. The woman, having no particular interest in or knowledge of coins, almost threw the nickel away thinking it was damaged or defective, but something made her hesitate. Maybe it was a memory of her husband carefully setting aside these few coins. Maybe it was simple curiosity, or maybe it was just good fortune intervening at the perfect moment, and instead of discarding it, she decided to take all 3 coins to a local coin shop to see if they had any value. The coin dealer who examined the coins that day later described the experience as one of the most shocking moments of his 30-year career. When he looked at the 1980 P nickel, he immediately recognized that something was extraordinarily unusual about it. And as he examined it more closely under magnification, he saw the off-center strike, the evidence of double striking, the oversized diameter, the cameo finish, and that distinctive die marker. And he realized he was looking at something that shouldn't exist, something that violated everything he thought he knew about mint procedures and coin production. The dealer, to his credit, was completely honest with the woman, explaining that while he couldn't be certain without professional authentication, he believed she might have an extremely valuable error coin, possibly worth thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, and he offered to facilitate sending it to PCGS for grading if she was interested. She agreed, and the coin was carefully packaged and shipped with full insurance to PCGS headquarters, where it underwent the most exhaustive authentication and evaluation process the company had ever conducted on a nickel. The initial grading process took 3 months because PCGS wanted to be absolutely certain of every aspect of the coin's authenticity. They conducted visual examination by multiple experts, metallurgical analysis to verify the composition, die studies to document the unique marker, weight and dimensional measurements, X-ray fluorescence testing to analyze the metal layers, and even consulted with retired mint officials who confirmed that experimental prototype programs had indeed existed during this period. When the coin finally emerged from the grading process, it was encapsulated with a grade of MS66 and an elaborate pedigree label documenting all its extraordinary characteristics: multiple error, transitional prototype, full cameo, unique die marker, and within hours of the grade being published, PCGS received calls from serious collectors and dealers around the world wanting to know if the coin might be available for purchase. The auction that eventually took place was one of the most anticipated numismatic events in decades, held in a private gallery in Manhattan with strictly limited attendance and simulcast online for international bidders. The atmosphere was electric with tension and excitement as representatives of the world's most serious collectors prepared to battle for ownership of this ultimate trophy coin. The opening bid was set at $20 million. Yes, $20 million just to get into the bidding. And from there, the price escalated rapidly through $30 million, $40 million, $50 million, as bidders who had prepared for years and accumulated enormous wealth for precisely this kind of opportunity refused to be outbid. The final moments of the auction were absolutely dramatic, with only 2 bidders remaining, one representing a Silicon Valley technology billionaire known for his passionate collecting of American error coins, and another representing a European banking family with a century-long tradition of numismatic collecting. And after an intense back-and-forth exchange that lasted nearly 20 minutes, the hammer finally fell at $90 million, with the European bidder emerging victorious and securing ownership of what would become the centerpiece of their family's private museum. The woman who had discovered the coin in her late husband's jewelry box received the full auction price minus the auction house commission, netting her approximately $82 million, instantly transforming her from someone preparing for modest retirement living into one of the wealthiest people in Philadelphia, able to live in luxury, support her children and grandchildren, and establish a charitable foundation in her late husband's name. But beyond the incredible dollar amounts and the dramatic auction, this coin story raises fascinating questions that continue to intrigue numismatists. How did it come to be in the possession of a mint employee? Was it legitimately obtained as a souvenir or sample, or was it smuggled out in violation of mint regulations? Did other employees take similar prototype coins home, meaning there could be more examples waiting to be discovered? And most tantalizing of all, if the mint was conducting prototype programs during this period, what other experimental coins might exist from this era, possibly still unrecognized and undervalued in collections around the world? For collectors and searchers today, the lesson from the 1980 $90 million nickel is clear. Even coins from recent decades, coins that were produced in massive quantities, coins that seem ordinary and common, can harbor extraordinary value if they possess unique characteristics, errors, or provenance. While the specific combination of features seen on the record-breaking 1980 P is genuinely unique, there are other valuable 1980 P varieties that keen-eyed searchers can still find. High-grade 1980 P nickels with full steps can be worth anywhere from $100 to $5,000 depending on grade. Off-center 1980 P errors without the other spectacular features are still worth $500 to $25,000. And even well-preserved 1980 P nickels in MS65 or better grades are worth $25 to $200, making them worth searching for. When examining your own 1980 P nickels, follow the same systematic approach we've discussed throughout this video. Check the overall appearance first, looking for anything unusual about size, shape, color, or weight. Examine the strike quality, especially the steps of Monticello. Look for any doubling, off-center striking, or other obvious errors. And check the surface for die cracks, cuts, or unusual markers that might indicate a special die or striking. Remember that the P mint mark should be small and located on the reverse to the right of Monticello. If the mint mark is missing, larger than normal, or in an unusual position, you might have a valuable variety. One of the most important lessons from all four of the coins we've discussed today, the 1946, the 1970 D, the 1980 D, and this incredible 1980 P, is that knowledge is power in the world of coin collecting and searching. Because without understanding what makes coins valuable, without knowing what characteristics to look for, without recognizing the subtle differences between a common coin and a rare variety, even the most valuable treasure could pass through your hands unrecognized and unappreciated. This is why education and research are so crucial for anyone interested in coins. Read numismatic publications, study images of known varieties and errors, join online forums and communities where collectors share information and help identify unusual coins, and most importantly, train your eye to notice subtle differences and anomalies that might indicate something special. The great thing about starting your coin collecting or searching journey today is that we live in an age of unprecedented access to information. 30 years ago, identifying rare varieties required expensive reference books and access to specialized libraries. But today, you can search online databases, view high-resolution images of rare coins, participate in forums where experts share knowledge freely, and even submit images of your own coins for identification and evaluation, all from the comfort of your own home. And here's perhaps the most exciting part of this entire story. While the specific coins we've discussed sold for $75, $80, $85, and $90 million respectively, making them accessible only to ultra-wealthy collectors, the knowledge and techniques required to find such coins is available to everyone regardless of their financial situation, which means that you, watching this video right now, have just as much chance of making a life-changing discovery as anyone else. If you're willing to learn, search carefully, and never give up hope that the next coin you examine might be something extraordinary. The 4 Jefferson nickels we've explored today represent the pinnacle of what's possible in numismatics. They prove that ordinary-looking coins can harbor extraordinary value, that mistakes and errors can create treasures worth more than their weight in gold, that patience and knowledge can lead to discoveries that change lives, and that the simple act of examining coins carefully can open doors to a fascinating world of history, artistry, and potential fortune. As we close out this incredible journey through some of the most valuable nickels ever discovered, I want to encourage you to take action. Don't let this be just another video you watch and forget. Instead, use this information as the starting point for your own adventure in coin searching and collecting. Go through your change, check old collections, visit local coin shops, start coin roll hunting at your bank, join online collecting communities, and most importantly, never stop learning and looking, because somewhere out there, maybe in your own home, there could be a coin waiting to be discovered that will change everything. Thank you so much for watching this deep dive into the world of ultra-rare and incredibly valuable Jefferson nickels. If you found this information helpful, exciting, or educational, please consider subscribing to CoinNexa USA, hitting that like button, and sharing this video with friends or family who might have old coins sitting around, because you never know whose life might be changed by the knowledge you share. Remember, every single coin has a story, every collection has potential, and every person who takes the time to look carefully has a chance to discover something amazing. So get out there, start searching, and who knows, maybe the next record-breaking numismatic discovery will be yours. Happy hunting, stay curious, and remember that in the world of rare coins, the most valuable thing you can possess isn't money or luck, it's knowledge, and you now have knowledge that puts you miles ahead of people who've never learned what to look for. Until next time, keep your eyes sharp, your magnifying glass handy, and your dreams of discovery alive, because in the exciting world of rare coins, anything is possible, and your fortune might be just one coin away.